Hello. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good. It's always good to come home. As Carrie was saying, I grew up around here. I don't know life without Carrie and Kim, and my whole life. And it was. I think in a couple weeks, it'll be 28 years ago. So almost 30 years ago, I packed up my little pickup truck and I left. Drove out of Lubbock and I headed east and I moved away, going on an adventure. And 30 years is a long time, and it's a long time. It's long enough to become strangers in a way. It's long enough to kind of forget the rhythm of this part of the world, you know. And we were in the little. My wife Jen is from Dallas, and she's a city girl, and. We were in, just the other day, we were over here at some little Chipotle type restaurant, you know, where you walk up and you can put whatever you want on your thing. And we were there and we'd never been there before and we didn't know, we were trying to figure it all out and figuring out what they had. And the people started coming in behind us and she was getting nervous, like we need to speed this up because these people will get mad behind us. And the next thing you know, the people behind us were helping us, and they were just friendly as anything, and like, just take your time. And Jen says, oh yeah, we're not in Dallas anymore, you know? So the rhythm of life is a little different, you know? But, you know, 30 years is not long enough to forget just the goodness of the generosity of this place and this country and you guys and this people and what healthy community can look like, and just I'm grateful for my upbringing. I'm grateful for that I came from here, and it's just always good to be back. We can go on a couple slides here, because it is a little slower. If y'all don't mind, I'm gonna take a little liberty and feel at home a little bit and be a little more casual. Is that all right with you guys? And sometimes I go to places and I have to keep on a little more of a rhythm. How much time do I have?
You got as much as you want.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, that might be dangerous. So I grew up around this area, and I have roots in a lot of different communities around here. And this is probably the way Carrie and Kim remember me. There on the right with the red hair. But that's my parents, George and Karen, and my brothers Zach and Caleb. And my dad was a Methodist pastor. I grew up around these areas and hopping around, potlucks and all that kind of stuff, you know, and just church life and small community life, and it was great. And what's the next slide? But I will say this. Let me say before I jump into it, growing up as a preacher's son, I don't know another preacher's son that hasn't looked down the barrel of what his father did for a living and thought, should I follow in his footsteps? And I did it long enough to say, nah, you know. But I did go in the ministry and I did get a little bit of the preaching thing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you just a couple stories, if that's all right. And then I'm going to preach a little bit. I'll get a little preaching bone going, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Is that all right? So I was here. I went to South Plains College, did a little bit of time there, and then I did some time at Tech. My first job in ministry was I hung out. I got paid money. I mean, not much, but I couldn't believe I got paid money to hang out with the junior high boys at a youth group where Carrie was the pastor in Levelland years ago, and so I did that for a while, and then I decided I needed to go chase after two things that were on my mind. One was adventure, and the other was Jesus. And I wanted to go find Jesus and find a faith that was my own, separate from what I'd been brought up in, but tethered to what I had been brought up in and on the foundation of what my parents had instilled in me, and I wanted to find it. So I went off and I thought, I'll go do this 6-month thing out called YWAM that some of you probably heard about, right? So I went to do this YWAM thing, and I met a girl on the first day and named Jen, and we got married. And we started traveling the world. And then we ended up in this picture right here. We had just been married. This was in the summer of 2000, and we found ourselves leading a small outreach team to South Africa. Now, we went there, and I was all about the adventure of going to South Africa and seeing lions and seeing all that kind of stuff. But I to be honest with you, I wasn't too keen, wasn't on going to Africa or South Africa in of itself in the ministry. And there's two reasons. We were going to do kids ministry, which I didn't really like kids, and then the second thing we were doing is we were going there to work with people with HIV, and I didn't want any business doing with anybody with HIV. And the main reason was, growing up, all the things I grew up with around here, and that I was so grateful for in my upbringing, there was one thing that I carried with me that wasn't so good, and that was this view of HIV. Back in the 80s and 90s, we really saw it as consequences to their sins and their actions. And I had a very pious attitude towards HIV. And I thought, well, there wasn't much I can do for these people. And I was all about doing the cool, cutting-edge stuff. That's what I wanted to do. And I found myself at this place right here where you see these pictures. And my wife and I were there. And this is a Catholic mission in a little town called Barberton, South Africa. And there were 4 nuns, 4 sisters of charity. And these 4 ladies, they had 2 ministries. And we went there for 2 weeks just to serve them and to volunteer. And the 2 ministries that they did, the first one was they ran hospice care for people dying of AIDS and AIDS-related symptoms, and that had been abandoned, ostracized by their whole family. It's a modern-day leprosy, and they were going to die alone, and they made it their commitment not to let these people die alone. And so they sat with them. And then the second ministry they had was they had an orphanage for all the children of the people who died in their hospice. And so what you see here is some of the kids. There were 18 kids in that orphanage at the time, and all but one were HIV positive, born with HIV. So we were there working and volunteering, and one night, these ladies, these nuns, right? They were the hardest working women I've ever met in my life, right? So what they would do is there were 4 of them, and somebody had to be up all the time, 24 hours a day. So they would work shifts and be on 2 and 2. So 2 of them would work all day, all night, all day, and then sleep. So they slept every other night. So we decided, hey, let's help out. Let's rotate, and we'll stay up at night and take care of the things that we can do. And if there's a problem, we'll wake you up. And so Jennifer and I took one shift one night, and there was a woman by the name of Sylvia. At the time, today, I am much older than Sylvia was on this day. She was in her early 40s probably, and the mother of some little kids, and she was dying. And she was dying that night. And we didn't know it, but she was there, and we said, we'll stay by her bed and hear her story. And all these stories that I understood of what HIV was and how people got it, I started to hear different stories and hear her story and how she was a faithful mother and a faithful wife. And she had contracted this disease, and she was terrified of what was going to happen to her children after she died. And we just sat there and heard her story all night and tried to give her the most peaceful death we could. Jennifer would take wet cloths and put them on her head. I'd play my guitar, hold her hand, and she passed away that night. And it was a very emotional moment, as you can imagine, right? So then, fast forward, a few hours later, she passed away just before dawn. I went to bed, got a couple hours of sleep, and then I'm up, and I'm on kid duty with all the kids. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, and I'm on the kid duty, and the kid that's in my right hand there, his name is Surprise. And at that photo, he's 5 years old, and he's HIV positive. And I'm playing freeze tag with him, and I'm chasing him around the room, right? And after just a couple minutes, he gets so winded he can't stand up anymore. And I thought, well, I don't have kids, but I don't think a 5-year-old should be winded like that quick, right? And I just, this isn't right. And I had a moment, and I told my team, I said, give me a couple moments, and I'm going to walk outside. And I went outside. I went back behind the mission, an African bush. I was a little nervous, thought there might be lions out there. And I found a place, and there was a log on the ground, and I sat there on that log. And I just began to pray. And I asked God to forgive me in my pious heart. And I said, thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for letting me see the world a little more like you see it in your eyes. And then I said another thing that I'll never forget. If there's anything I can do, let me know. Yeah, that's what I said to God. And I had no idea what that prayer was going to do and what the road it was going to take me on. But anyway, so fast forward. What's the next slide? Let's see. Oh, yeah. We'll pause right there for a minute, okay? So fast forward. I've come back to America. We're newlyweds. We're doing our thing, doing other ministries, helping plant a church, and we're trying to help plant a church, and we have a little home team in our that meets in our house. And I'm telling stories about Africa, right? Because I had to, because they were so a part of me. Africa wouldn't let me go, really. So I would tell them in the home team, and I just tell people. And then one day, some of the people in the home team came and said, "Hey, we want to go to Africa. We want to go do something. Will you help us organize something?" And I said, "Heck yeah, we'll do that." And I kept in contact with some of the people and the people we'd worked with there. So we loaded up. And we went on a little exploratory trip to see what we could do. And I had a South African contact, who was working with a local pastor in this community. So we went out, and we were just going there to listen, to learn, to figure out how could we help? What could we do to be a part of the solution and to make a difference in Africa? And so we went to this little village, dusty village, on the Mozambican border. So if you know anything about South Africa is the country at the very bottom of Africa at the tip. And on the northeast side, up in the top right, is a little part of South Africa that's right next to the border of Swaziland, and it's next to the border of Mozambique. And Mozambique, years ago, has gone through massive civil wars and things like that. So there were a lot of refugees that came fleeing the civil war, and whole families, and they would follow electrical lines across the bush, and they would get to a place, and then they would squat. And so this picture you're looking at right here is in one of those communities. It's a dusty community with no electricity, no running water, no anything. And these Mozambican refugees had just come and plopped there, and were trying to carve out a new life. And we went there, and this pastor had found this young, what they call child-headed home family. So what it was it was a group of siblings living together who were orphaned. Mom and dad had died. And what they were doing was we met this young girl. Her name was Cassandra. She was 12 years old, and she was the head of her house. All right, so she was the caregiver for her siblings at 12. And they were living in this, what you see here, this little shack. And the back part of it, it's actually deceiving, because they would only sleep under the leaning part because the back part was not safe. And their dad had started to make this, and then he passed away from HIV-related symptoms. Mom and dad had both died, and they had been living under that piece of tin for 3 years, barely surviving. So we went out there, and we met them, and we sat under a tree, as you do in Africa, and we just started to ask Cassandra, 12-year-old Cassandra, questions. You can go to the next slide. That's Cassandra in the white top and the red skirt. And we sat with Cassandra, and we asked her questions, and we said, and my colleague that was there with me, he said, "If you could have anything in the world, what would it be?" And Cassandra didn't even hesitate. She said, "A house. I want to feel safe when I sleep at night." So my other colleague that was there with me, a very quiet Mennonite man from South Carolina, says, "Okay, we'll build you a house." And I thought, "We will?" Hey, who's paying for this, you know? And so this was back when it was just internet cafes. We didn't have the computer in our pockets, and we didn't. So we got together and emailed some friends, put coins in a payphone from South Africa, and we raised enough money from friends and family to pay for a house. And we set out to build a house. And this is us. And so we'd never built a house. We didn't know what to do. The guy with me, he had built a house before, but we never built one in Africa. And we didn't know what they had or how we were going to build it. So we started looking around. Well, okay, we need to build it from block. We want to make it strong. We want to make it last. But there was no water in this. There was no electricity in this community. The community, what they did for water is they had to walk 5 kilometers one way with those jerry cans. They would walk all the way 5 kilometers, fill up with water, and walk back. That's how they survived. And so we thought, we need water to mix cement. So you see that water tank there? That tank would hold 1,000 liters in it. And we bought 2 of them. And we thought, okay, we'll bring a fresh one with us every night. Because if we don't use all of that water, we don't want to dump it out, right? So we'll leave one there overnight. If it just got a little bit in it, we'll leave it there overnight and make sure we bring a fresh one with us every morning as we drive into the community. So we show up that first day. Now, we don't speak the language, and they don't speak English, and many of them hadn't seen many white people. And we're very happy, clappy Americans, right? And we're like, hi, how you doing? Howdy, you know? And they're like, they don't know if they can trust us. They don't know who we are. They don't know what we're there for. So we just show up, and we wave at them, and we drive through the little dusty path in the community, and we go to the job site, and we start with our pickaxes and shovels, and we start digging the foundation. And we're mixing mud by hand, mixing concrete by hand, and we're just working and working and working hard, and they just stand on the edge of the job site like this. Not a smile, not even nothing warm about it, okay? And we're like, okay. But then the next day we show up again, we do it again. And the next day we do it again, and we do it again. We keep showing up every day, keep working. And slowly the arms went from here to here, you know? And about a week and a half in, when we were about the top of those window heights, building those walls, it takes time to build those walls up, right? And about a week and a half in, we're at the top of those windows, and we show up one morning, and at the edge of the community, we show up just as about dawn. And as we're driving up, we can see a bunch of people in the distance, and we're like, what's going on? And we pull up, and there's people everywhere. And they're jumping up and down and dancing. We're like, the whole community came out. And we thought, what is going on? Can't figure this thing out. So we pull in onto the dirt path, and as we're going, they come along the vehicle, and they're cheering and dancing and singing and running along the vehicles, and we pull up to the job site, and we pull up there, and this grandmother, they call them go-go's. A grandmother in Africa is called a go-go. It's a great name, isn't it? And the go-go's, the grandmothers, are the backbone of the community. And so one of the go-go's, one of the grandmothers, comes around to the car, to my side of the door, and she opens the door, and she grabs my hand, and she pulls me out of the car, and she starts dancing with me. And she wants me to dance with her. And I thought, lady, I can't dance, you know? I'm white. But anyways, I do my best, right? And she didn't know how to two-step, so we had a little problem. But we danced our way around, and I still was like, something happened. Well, I don't have a clue what's going on here. And as we dance around to the other side, we get to where that water tank, that square water tank, you know, we've seen, one we'd leave there overnight almost empty, and we walk up to it, and I look at it, and I realize that tank is completely full of water. They had gotten together as a community with their jerry cans and said, we're going to walk back and forth all night long until we get that tank full of water. They said, these people that we don't know, never met before, strangers from a foreign land, show up in our community, and they're doing something to serve the most valuable of our community. We refuse to stand by and do nothing. It was powerful. Changed everything for me. And I knew at that moment I had to do this again. we had to find a way to do this again because the community came alive. I realized that day what the definition of hope is. Hope is looking forward to what we do not have, while we gain comfort in the pursuit of it. The pursuit gives us the comfort, right? And it was a powerful, powerful moment. And so we said, we're going to do this again and again and again. And that's what we've done. So we've built houses for, we started 10,000 homes that day. And we set out to build houses to provide shelter and nutrition for the most vulnerable of Africa, for the child-headed home, the one whose mom and dads have died from HIV and who have been abandoned. And so we've built, in over 20 years, we've served 22,500 kids. And this is some of the families here. We've done loads of other things. You don't just do one thing in Africa, and anytime you're in, Christian ministry and you're building the church and building the kingdom, it's going to be multiple other things from tutoring classes to feeding programs to discipleship programs to training, all kinds of different training things, to soccer camps to, I can't even tell you all the things we've done, to sewing classes. We've done so many things, and it's been a wonderful journey. We built community centers in 12 different communities, where like this one here, where these are 4 ladies that we employed to look after the orphans and the kids, and we build a center, partner with a church in a community, and we build a center there where these kids can come, the child-headed homes, because there's no orphanages. And in Africa, there's a saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. They believe that philosophy. And so we'll build a center partnered with a church where the kids have a safe place to come, where they live at home and live in their own house, raise themselves, so to speak, but then they can come and have adults and people that look after them. These are some of the kids at one of the feeding programs. So those ladies there, they'll serve, they'll do feeding program. We'll have a hot meal. They'll cook a warm hot meal, and then we'll do classes with them and all kinds of stuff, right? So, So over the years, it's been a privilege. This was not what I thought I was going to do. And it was not what I thought when I pulled away from Lubbock, Texas that day, 28 years ago. I had no idea what was in store. But it has been the joy of my life and the privilege of my life to be able to do this. And I've raised 2 kids in Africa, and we continue to. So now what we're doing is we've established these 12 centers. We work in all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, down to Cape Town, across Sub-Saharan Africa, through the eastern side. This part of the world is the most affected by HIV in the whole world. Currently, today, there's still 10.2 million orphans because of HIV today. And it's not as 20 years ago, they were believing the numbers were going to hit 50 million and stuff. But thankfully, medication, honestly, a medication has helped keep mothers and fathers alive. So the numbers have stayed lower, but 10 million still alive. And unfortunately, access to medication is getting more and more difficult nowadays. And so we're seeing more and more orphans. The number's growing rapidly at the moment. And so we thought, we've got to get out and tell anybody and everybody we can. And we want to tell as many people as we can. And here's the deal. Our ministry now is having moments like this and giving opportunities like I had that day on that log. When I said, if there's anything I can do, God, And so today I just want to come and tell you some of that, tell you some of what you can do. When you think of the kingdom of God, the kingdom it's beyond our effort. And we have the name 10,000 homes because we thought that was the absolute biggest number that we could think of that we could actually maybe say we could do. And in 20 years, we've done 22,500. And now we want to do even more. And we want to reach it, we do even more. So the thing is the kingdom of God is bigger than any of our effort, but it's also bigger than any of our vision. But what we can do is in the little things, and as we read scriptures, and as we read the scripture, we can get glimpses of what that kingdom looks like, right? Through like Galatians says, talking about carrying each other's burdens, like the go-go carried the water, or James says, pure and undefiled religion is this, to care for orphans and widows in their time of distress and need. And for me, this is the first Sunday of Lent, and as we move towards Easter, and we talk about Jesus, we talk about the crucifixion, I can't help but be reminded of, in the crucifixion story of an African. There's Africans in the Bible, and the Egyptians and all that kind of stuff, right? We know that there's Africans in the Bible, but there was a man in the Bible named Simon of Cyrene. Cyrene is a city in Africa. So Simon of Cyrene is an African. And if those of you that maybe know, but Simon of Cyrene was the man who carried the cross of Jesus at the crucifix. He was the man who jumped in there and carried the cross of Jesus. And I think that's what compassion is. That, for me, that is the definition of compassion. We talk about the crucifixion and we talk about the passion of the Christ, and that Jesus a passion is something you would give your life for. Compassion is that when you take on the passion of another person. And the Africans taught us how to do that. They've taught us how to be servants. They taught us how to, their God-given gift is that of service and hospitality. One of the most beautiful hospitable places I've ever been in my life. And their gift for service has been exploited through generations of slavery and indentured servanthood and all kinds of things. And they've been ravaged with corruption and disease and wars. And I think now, as they face, in the last 20 years, I feel it's such a privilege that I could go and be a servant to the servants in an act of compassion. And that's what we were trying to do. And so we're trying to get out and tell everybody we can, and tell the story, and tell what's happening there. And we're trying to build a community of people that will join us. So here's the thing. This is what you can do. I'll give you a little practical thing of how you can help and how you can be a part of it. And that is, one is you can pray. We started off this meeting this morning with the prayers. How powerful is that? How generous is that to offer your prayers? And I believe in prayer. I believe in miracles. We started this thing, and COVID did a number on us, as it did a lot of people. And it hurt a lot of our ministries and hurt a lot of the way we operate. It hurt some of our funding models of how we funded our ministry. And there were days where we didn't know how we were going to feed the kids. And we didn't know. Right now, currently, we have 1,200 kids that we're responsible for on a weekly basis. And we didn't know how we were going to feed them. We didn't know how we were going to do it. And then we would just pray. And then next thing you know, I get an email from somebody never met in my life, says, I got $40,000 for you. And I said, all right. Yeah, that's a yes. Yeah, I'm glad I opened my email today. And no, I'm glad we prayed, right? And so I believe in prayer, and I believe in miracles. And so you can add us to your prayers, please. The second thing is you can give. We're trying to build a community. Jen and I are here talking to anybody and everybody we can to get a monthly community of people giving every month. Our goal is to build a monthly community that will support not just 1,200 kids every week, but support 10,000 every week, so that we can make a dent, play our part in the bigger number of over 10 million in Africa. And then the third thing is you can, if you feel so led, give a one-time donation. Not everybody can come to Africa, and we know that, but we can all play a part in some way and pray, and we can be brothers and sisters in Christ who serve one another and carry the burdens and the cross of each other. Because, as I said, these go-go's, they said that they weren't going to sit by and do nothing. They were going to carry water. They were going to do whatever they could. And so today, I just come and share with you and humbly ask, would you pray? Is there anything you could do? Is there any way you could be a part of this? And because this is part of building the kingdom. And this is part of what Jesus is about and what he's busy with on the earth right now. So thank you very much. That's all I have today. All right. Bless you.